Angelica. All right, how are you, Jane? Nice to see you.
Hi, nice to see all of you too. Thank you for having me.
And you are, the first question everybody wants to ask is, what's the temperature in Dubuque, Iowa today?
Oh, it's in the teens, but the wind chill is multiple degrees below zero with blowing snow.
Very
So
good year.
Oh,
I was just
well,
out shoveling before I got here. It's a
well,
good day to be in Tucson.
a lot of us have Midwestern roots, so we're delighted that you're there. And we need to have the screen on Jade and not on Chris. Hi, Chris. Nice to see you.
If everybody else could
Happy to be here.
close their video.
Okay, can you close your video, Chris? If you
Yes.
can figure out
And
how to do that.
We have click
and if
on
And
the
all
people
people are asking
people
in.
could mute themselves too. People on Zoom could mute
Yes,
themselves.
yeah.
right.
Perfect.
Once she starts, we're gonna close our camera too.
Okay, we'll close that. Okay, we'll close that out then. So close the microphone and close your screen. If you could do those two things, that'll make it easier for our presentation. Okay? So I'm delighted that Jade is back with us. We had a presentation by her back in September, and it was just a real eye-opening, wonderful conversation that ensued. So we're just delighted that she's back with us this time. Jade is going to talk about best practices of caregiving. Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah. So anyway, I like that title, by the way, because it's not like it's not suggesting that any practice of caregiving isn't done in a loving way, but there are better ways to do it. I love that affirmation. There are other ways to do it in best practices. So with that, Jade, unless there's anything else you want from me, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, I'm just curious technically if I can see the group.
Oh,
Because right now I can see a picture of a church there.
There, now we're in the group.
yeah. I just closed our
Yes,
camera.
I can see that.
Wave
Can you
and-
all still see me?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes, we
Okay,
can all still see you. So,
perfect.
all right,
Okay,
great. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, take it away.
Thank you so much. So the first thing I want to say is I need to thank Jerry for being so on top of things because I was not aware of the differences in the time zones, and I had 4 p.m. on my calendar here in Iowa. And Jerry was on top of it, and he let me know that the time changed and I needed to be here at 3. Otherwise, I would have been here and it would have been all over. So please, could we just all give Jerry a hand? Yay. Thank you so much for the details, paying attention to the details. So when I was here with you in September, we talked about hope and healing, and we covered some spiritual topics in that presentation. The content of our meeting today is more about practicalities, about how to best care for people living with dementia. And I've framed this in like a structure of talking about do's and don'ts. So, what I'm going to be sharing are some proven best practices. But since you folks have all been studying about dementia and living with dementia, you may already be practicing some of these best practices. So after the presentation, when we get to the questions and discussion section, it would be really good to hear from you about how some of these do's are helping you in your lives. So, like I said, there'll be time after the presentation for us to have some questions and answers and discussion. And we also passed out some discussion questions. So after I leave you, you can break up into small groups and have even more discussion. So the other thing I wanted to share with you is more details about everything I'm going to be talking about today. You can find in my book, which is called Where Two Worlds Touch, and Jerry has more information about that. So I want to start off today with a quotation from a Catholic saint, Saint Teresa of Avila. But before I share her words, I want to let you know why I've chosen her words. So some of you have probably heard of René Descartes, who in the 16th, 17th century was a French philosopher, and he established a philosophy called rationalism. And this rationalism kind of became the foundation of philosophy in the Western world. And that famous quote, I know you're all familiar with this: I think, therefore I am. So there's a modern theologian, Father Richard Rohr, and he experiences these words of Descartes as one of the worst moments in human history. He is someone who has always challenged this focus on thought as the sole basis for existence. He proposes that true selfhood comes from the spiritual, relational I am. He's talking about the presence of God in all things. And that presence is what we talked about during our spiritual discussion back in September. But Richard Rohr was not the first person to contradict René Descartes. Before he was even born, Saint Teresa of Avila had offered her rebuttal to that statement, I think, therefore I am. And her words are completely relevant to us today in the context of Alzheimer's caregiving. So these are her words. The important thing is not to think much, but to love much. Do then whatever most you.
Jade, can you hear us?
There we go.
Hi, welcome back.
What was that? Yeah,
There, okay.
okay.
So, Chris, can you mute
I
yourself?
mean, it's cold back there.
Can you all hear me?
No.
We're having really poor internet right now.
Electrons are moving really slow.
See if I can have this, see if I can connect to this internet instead. Our connection's unstable. No kidding.
So, are we good?
Network bandwidth is low. Turn my Wi-Fi on.
Yeah, if anybody's on Wi-Fi, if you can turn it off, that may help.
Yeah, that should help.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, all of us have our phones to draw all that energy off.
All the bandwidth that's taken up Wi-Fi bandwidth, so we can just shut Wi-Fi off. Our phones or tablets or anything, so it should help. Let's see. Oh. We still recording? Yep, we're still recording.
Yep, you're still recording.
So
We're making a recording of the technical difficulties.
Yeah.
So before we lost you, was someone asking a question?
No.
No? Okay. We have the quote from Saint Teresa. I'll just share that again. The important thing is not to think much, but to love much. Do then whatever most stirs you to love. She wrote that back in the 1500s. Still very, very relevant to what we're talking about today. As far as dementia caregiving goes. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is something I learned from the very first book I read about Alzheimer's caregiving, and that book was called Learning to Speak Alzheimer's. And it was published in 2003, just about the time when I was starting to get involved in this topic and caring for my mother. And it was written by a woman named Joanne Koenig Kost, and she was a trailblazer in this field. And she and another man named Paul Rea developed what they called habilitation therapy. So we're all familiar with the word rehabilitation, which is about us regaining a capacity that we've lost. For example, if we break our leg, we might go to physical therapy and have rehabilitation so that we can walk again. Well, habilitation therapy is more about the quality of life given the capacities that are remaining. So this is one of the definitions. Habilitation therapy is an approach to caring for a person with progressive dementia that focuses on validating the person's underlying emotions, maintaining dignity, creating moments for success, creating more good moments than bad moments, and using all of their remaining skills. So I want to let you know that we have some handouts we'll be giving you at the end of the program, and one of them has some quotations about habilitation. But the authors, the developers of this process, they talk about 6 critical areas of life that they call domains that are important for us to pay attention to when we're caring for people with dementia. So here they are. The physical, which is, of course, how they're moving about, what their capacities are. Social, talking about activities. Jerry mentioned the memory cafe. Functional, how are they thinking? What can they do? Perceptual, what are they noticing with their senses? Behavioral, how are they acting? How are they relating to people? And communication. So of all of these really important areas, the habilitation model states that with dementia. So this is where I have focused my work. It's on communication. And I believe that communication is critical for relationship building. Okay. So the next thing I want to talk about is meeting people with Alzheimer's, connecting with them, communicating with them. And the way that we do that is by meeting with them in their reality, in their world. So the first don't I want to introduce is called reality orientation. So let me just ask if anybody in the group, what does reality orientation mean to you? Does anybody have a thought about that? Anybody?
Yeah,
Meeting them where they are. At the level.
At the level that they are. That's the do. That's the do. The don't is reality orientation.
yes,
I was thinking just to correct.
Correct them. That's right. Reality orientation it's an intervention that involves providing people with information about time and place, in theory, to help them make sense of reality and reduce confusion. But when you're working with someone with dementia, it does just the opposite. It actually creates confusion, because what we're doing with reality orientation when we're correcting people with dementia is we're trying to orient them to our reality. And their reality very different from ours. So at a very early stage in the dementia journey, it could be possible to use reality orientation, but generally it is not recommended. And unfortunately, it's still being taught in some nursing schools. What we need to do if we use reality orientation, we need to pay close attention to their reactions. And the reason we need to do this is because we could be upsetting them with reality orientation, thinking we're doing a good thing, but we're not doing a good thing. So I want to give you an example. Oftentimes, people who have dementia will be asking to see a long dead relative. So one of my colleagues, Carl, cared for his mother, whose name was Myra. And there was one day where Myra asked for her husband. You know, Daddy passed away long, long ago. He's died. Don't you remember? And she just benefit. She never asked for her husband again. But if she had asked for him again, a different approach would have been needed. Because this kind of grief would be repeated in her heart over and over and over again. This is not helpful to Myra's well-being, and it's not helpful to Carl's peace of mind. So I'd like to give you an example from my own life of caring for my mother, an example of reality orientation that for me didn't really go so well. So I just want to give you a little history. My mom was diagnosed in Alzheimer's in 2001, and at the time I was living in Maine and she was living in Iowa. So I did my very best to kind of avoid the whole topic because it can be a scary topic. But a couple years later, a cousin of mine brought mom out to visit me in Maine, and it was there that I recognized what I could only describe as exquisite vulnerability, losing her skills. And during this short time together with my mom in Maine, I was really deeply touched by what I witnessed. And so we fast forward a year, it's 2004, and my sister, who was living with my mom, wanted to go on vacation. And so she asked me if I would come and stay with her. And I said, sure. And then my sister said this. She said, Mom is really uncooperative. She's angry and combative. She won't eat, she won't take her medicine, or do what I tell her to do. In order to get her to obey, you'll have to raise your voice, threaten to take her to the mental hospital, or give her these antipsychotic drugs I got from her internist. And then, well, now I was pretty worried because I didn't know what I had said yes to, and I didn't have much experience at all caring for someone with dementia. And so, what I want to share is, and my sister's approach was pretty common. And unfortunately, I want to report to you that this approach is still pretty common from people who don't understand the disease. So I really want to honor all of you for being here regularly to learn as much as you can. So I kind of found these approaches both terrifying, and so I searched the internet and I couldn't find anything about alternative caregiving. I was trying to find a different way. there wasn't much, it was 2004. So days before I was going on my trip out to Iowa, a colleague of mine heard my despair and she told me about the book, Learning to Speak Alzheimer's. So I ordered it overnight express, popped it into my carry-on luggage, and I was reading it in a plane on the way to Iowa. So somewhere over Michigan, what I was reading gave me an idea to use techniques that I was learning in my improvisational theater class to communicate with my mom. So now I want to tell you what happened when I got there. So I hadn't been there 24 hours, and my mom and I were playing cribbage. And this was a game that she and I had been playing together for over 40 years. In fact, there was a story that went around our neighborhood when I was little that I had learned how to count 15, 2, 15, 4, 15, 6. Before I came, and the game is going along really well. And she was winning as usual, but something in her must have felt like I was catching up. And so in the middle of the hand, she stopped playing and she said to me, well, then she asked me this question: who taught you how to play? The question caught me totally off guard because, of course, she had taught me how to play. So I decided that I would remind her, and I said, you did, Mom, you taught me how to play. And she looked at me very surprised and she said, I did not. And I said, yes, you did. And she said, no, I didn't. And she's like really getting irritated at me. I could see it in her face and her manner. And, so I had got more insistent. Yes, you did. And finally, she pounded on the table and she said, no, I didn't. So, technique called redirecting. You probably have all heard of that. When someone is agitated, we try to redirect them. And so I said to her, it's your play. And it worked. She was redirected. The game continued. But a couple minutes later, she must have remembered that earlier conversation. And she said to me, no, really, who taught you how to play? So I didn't want to repeat the you did, no, I didn't upset. So I, I, I can only say this came to me from a higher power because I spoke the truth to her, but I said it a little differently. She asked me again, really, who taught you how to play? And I said, my mother did. And Stella knew how to play cribbage. So here I am sitting 2 feet away from my mother, and she didn't recognize me. She thought I was her cousin Eileen. I was really, really puzzled. I didn't know. And then Mom said, yes, and Aunt Stella was a good cook too. So I never met Aunt Stella, but I borrowed a line from Learning to Speak Alzheimer's. And I said, well, what did she make that you like the best? And then with a big smile, she announces Kneffles. I don't know if any of you know what this is, but it's a German noodle. And she said the word with a big smile and great enthusiasm. And so we talked about Aunt Stella's cooking for a while, and then the game continued. And of course, my mother won. She always won. So, as you can see from this story, my attempt at reality orientation did not reduce any confusion. In fact, it made mom really angry. And her getting angry was not helpful to mom, and it was not helpful to me. So when we think about, well, what did reduce the confusion? It was what our the first lady who answered the question, joining her in her world. That's what reduced the confusion. And this is the recommended intervention for interacting with people with Alzheimer's. And it has been the recommended intervention for the past 30 years. So if we go back to habilitation therapy, the goal in our communications with people with Alzheimer's is to create more good moments for them than bad moments. So our don't is don't use reality orientation, because reality orientation is about us. It's about our facts. It's about our reality. So we have a don't. What's the do? Part one is to meet them in their world. And how do we do that? We do that by using what I call therapeutic fiblets. So I want to give you an example of therapeutic fiblet, another story. Story was shared with me by a woman from California who came to one of my workshops. And she was a nurse at an assisted living facility. And they were having troubles with this woman who lived there. And she didn't want to get out of bed, and she didn't want to take a shower, and she didn't want to get dressed. And every day they struggled with her. So finally, after coming to the workshop, the nurse had a brilliant idea. And she knew that this woman she was an actress, and she had been under contract with MGM back in the 40s. And so the nurse went to her and said, there's a photographer in the lobby waiting for you, wanting to take your photograph. And the woman was just thrilled. And she jumped up out of bed. She took a shower. She got dressed. She was putting on her makeup. And by the time she was finished with her makeup, she had forgotten all about the photographer in the lobby. But she was in a very good mood all day long. So this is an example of what I call a direct therapeutic fiblet. But I want to share with you something. There's been a big controversy continuing over the 30 years about this, because some people consider it lying and they consider it to be undignified. But attitudes are starting to change, because this is the approach that is most effective. I also want to point out that we engage in what we call fantasy play with children all the time without creating a moral dilemma about it. And what we're doing now with people with dementia is engaging with them in a way that validates their reality. And what I want you to remember about that phrase, therapeutic fiblets, is the word therapeutic. The word therapeutic. This is what works. Now, with my mom, I didn't actually use a fiblet, because when she said, "No, really, who taught you how to play?" I said, "My mother did." So that was the truth. But where the fiblet part comes in is that I agreed to be who she thought I was. I agreed to be her cousin Eileen. This is what I would call an indirect fiblet. So next I want to talk about emotional memory. We touched on this in the presentation in September, but I want to talk about it a little bit more today. And I'd like to start by reading you a poem that's called Heart Memories. And this poem was written by a woman named Louise Eder, and it was first published in the spring of 1984. in the issue of a newsletter from the Kansas City Alzheimer's Disease and Related Disorders Association. So 1984, folks, this is 42 years ago. And it's important to know that this information was available 42 years ago. So I don't know. I tried to find out if Louise Eder was a caregiver, a family caregiver, if she was a person with dementia, or if she was a professional who observed this reality. But it is definitely a reality. Heart Memories by Louise Eder. I remember you with my heart. My mind won't say your name. I can't recall where or if I knew you, who you were or who I was. Maybe I grew up with you, or maybe we worked together. Or did we bowl together yesterday? There's something wrong with my memory, but I do know you and I do love you. I know I knew you. I know how you make me feel. I remember the feelings we had together. My heart remembers. It cries out in loneliness for you, for the feelings you give me now. Today, I'm happy that you have come. When you leave, my mind will not remember that you were here, but my heart remembers the feeling of friendship and love returned, remembers that I am less lonely and happier today because of the feeling, because you have come. Please don't forget me, and please don't stay away because of the way my mind acts. I can still feel you. I can still remember you with my heart, and a heart memory is maybe the most important memory of all. So let me repeat those words of St. Teresa of Avila. The important thing is not to think much, but to love much. So I mentioned this at the last presentation, but I will mention again. The University of Iowa in 2010 started studying emotions of people with Alzheimer's and other forms of memory loss. And what they discovered is that emotions linger long after after an experience is cognitively forgotten. So what that means is that if you go to visit someone in a care center and you have a really lovely time, that feeling of happiness will linger long after you've left. Paul Rea reminds us that emotions are what people with dementia are good at. So they forget things cognitively, but they don't forget things emotionally. They can remember emotionally, they can learn emotionally, they feel a variety of emotions, and they can express emotions. It's important to know that emotional memory is alive and well. They're also very perceptive about our emotions. Joanne Koenig Kost tells a story in her book about her husband who had early onset Alzheimer's and a non-stick pan. One day she left him home alone and he very industriously scrubbed that non-stick pan until the entire non-stick coating was scraped away. And he came home and he had great joy on his face and he showed her what she had done and she just got this look on her face, was like, oh no, what did you do? And he said, oh, are you angry? And she said, no, I'm not angry. And he said to her, your words say no, but your eyes say yes. So they are very perceptive emotionally. I do want to point out, though, there are some losses in this arena of emotions that are very important for us to pay attention to. One of the things that is lost is the ability to process emotions. That's a cognitive process. So people can be upset and they don't know why. They also lose the ability to self-soothe. And this piece is kind of heartbreaking for me, because if they are afraid, or if they are angry, or if they are anxious and confused, they no longer have the skills to soothe themselves out of that. They no longer have the cognitive ability to understand what has happened. So the soothing is something that we need to learn how to do so that we can help them work through things and get back into a better place. And they've also lost the ability to tell us what happened to cause this. So the negative emotions, emotions that we call negative, and the reason we call them negative is because they have kind of a negative impact on our bodies. The emotions themselves aren't negative, they just are. But anger, fear, sadness, anxiety, those emotions, in the study from the University of Iowa, they last even longer than the positive emotions. So something happens, makes our loved ones with dementia angry. That emotion is going to linger, and it will linger for a while. So, in the do's and the don'ts around emotions and emotional memory, what we need to do with people with dementia is engage with them emotionally. What we don't want to do ever is try to rationalize with them or reason with them or try to convince them with facts, our facts. Paul Rea encourages us never to use the word no with a person with dementia. It's a recipe for conflict. And what Joanne tells us is that beneath the failing words are emotions that matter. Okay? So the next thing I want to talk about, and you also are going to have a handout about this one. Back in 1992, and I'm wanting to point out these resources are not new. Uh, the information that these folks were sharing back in the 80s and the 90s is still really, really valid today. So Tom Kitwood and Kathleen Breeden, they published a study, an article on what they called the 12 signs of well-being for people with severe dementia. The number one sign of well-being is the assertion of will or desire, usually in the form of dissent, despite various coaxings. So, what this means, a sign of well-being, is that people with dementia are expressing their autonomy, oftentimes through dissent. So, what happens is techniques in communication, connection, emotion, they're important to implement here in a situation where your loved one has some dissent going on. They're much more effective and frankly kind and relational than trying to medicate away well-being. So here we are in a possible do-don't scenario. My sister was medicating away my mom's dissent. So when I went to visit her, I was armed with my improvisation training, and I implemented that at times of dissent. And I'll tell you a little story. So my mom's close friend was in a nursing home, and we had plans to go to visit him. His name is Merlin, and so I was in the bedroom and I was like putting on earrings and brushing my hair. We were just about ready to go, and she came in and she asked me what I was doing, and I said, "Well, I'm getting ready. We're going to see Merlin." And she got really disturbed and she said, "Well, we can't go now." And I said, "Why not?" And she said, "Because this is the time that Millie comes to visit me." Well, Millie is her sister who died, 20 years ago. And so instead of correcting her, I accepted what she said as valid. And I said, "Well, what would you think if we like wrote Millie a note and stuck it on the door and told her, that we'd be right back, told her where we went and that we'd be right back." And mom said, "Oh yeah, that's a good idea." So I said, "Well, go get a paper and some pen and a pencil and we'll write the letter." So by the time I had my hair brushed and my earring, and she was looking for paper and pencil and forgot what we were doing, and she was ready to go. Into the car we went. So we need to be creative in the way that we're interacting with people with dementia in order to, enhance their well-being. We don't want to be taking away their will or their desire. So the do with these signs of well-being is meet people with Alzheimer's where they are, even if they're being willful. And we try to recognize it for what it is. When they're disagreeing with us, we're trying to recognize it for what it is. It's a sign of well-being. And I know this sounds really challenging, but we, kind of try to celebrate it. Ah, you're still there. Your willfulness is still there. So the don't is don't medicate, or at least use that as a last resort. The thing about medications is that they can increase confusion, um, and there just may really be other ways to ensure cooperation. So I think you'll find this list of the 12 signs of well-being really fascinating. So the next topic is saying yes. So I repeat, Paul Reyes said, never use the word no. So our don't in this category is don't say no, and our do is say yes. And so what do I mean by yes? Well, I'm not really talking about a literal yes. I had a woman in a workshop come up to me and say, "Well, how can I possibly say yes to my husband? He wants to take the lawn chair out into the middle of the lake and sit in it." So, yeah, we got to use our common sense when we're talking about saying yes. And so, when I talk about yes, I'm talking about affirmation and acceptance. I'm not necessarily talking about agreement. We're not agreeing to put the lawn chair in the middle of the lake. So, acceptance has been shown to be one of the most effective coping techniques for caregivers because it relieves stress. We have to accept that this is what's happening. And this is why it's important to learn as much about Alzheimer's or the form of dementia that your loved one has, so that you need to know what to expect and what to accept. So affirmation is the opposite of reality orientation. When we affirm someone, we validate that person's reality. And I want to tell you a little story here and ask you a question. So I was touring nursing homes looking for a place for my mom. And when I went into this one nursing home, it had a beautiful courtyard just as you walked in the front door. And in that courtyard, I saw a man in a wheelchair and his daughter. Just noticed them. And so a few, I don't know, maybe 15 minutes later, I was up in the dementia unit with the director of the unit who was showing me around. And coming down the hallway, I see this man in his wheelchair and his daughter is pushing his wheelchair. And I noticed that this man was wearing a really beautiful teal blue shirt. And when I looked at him, I saw that the shirt was the exact same color as his eyes. And I couldn't help but comment. And so I said to him, "Oh, what a beautiful shirt you have." And he said, beaming, he was beaming with pride and joy. And he said to me, "Well, thank you. I made it myself." And his daughter leaned over the wheelchair, looked at him, and said, "No, Dad, don't you remember? Mom gave this to you last year at Father's Day." So the man looked completely bewildered. Everyone just was stunned. And so there was nothing else to say. We all just kind of turned and walked away, and the man was very upset. So, what do you all think the daughter could have said that might have validated her father's reality in that moment? It's a lot simpler than you think.
She could have said, I agree, isn't that beautiful? I've admired that on you.
Lovely. Yes. Anybody else?
She might have mentioned, and it looks the same color as your eyes.
Yep. Somebody could say that. Yep. Yep.
Or she might have said, well, you're the one that picked it out.
Yeah, she could have said that. Anything that validates.
Um,
Yeah. And she could also said like he said I made it. I made it myself. She could have said, "Oh, you do such good work, Dad.
Yes.
You're so creative. You're so clever." One of my favorite answers that someone gave in a workshop was, "Yeah, Mom always liked that shirt on you." She brings the reality of the mom into the story. So it's it's something that's way simpler than we think it is. So try not to overthink it. Yeah. So how do we do this? How do we say this yes? How do we affirm people when their reality is different from ours? And the next topic is improvisation because this is how I learned. The craft of improvisation is one of the unique techniques that the Healing Moments workshops, those are my workshops, teach caregivers, and we give them an opportunity to practice. So whenever I mention the word improvisation, people get really nervous because they think we're going to do something like whose line is it anyway? We're not doing that. We're never doing that. When I'm talking about improvisation with people with Alzheimer's, we're not talking about comedy or being funny or being inventive or outrageous.
I thought I last time.
Sorry, someone said something? Is that Joanne?
She needs to be muted.
Oh, Joanne?
Wasn't me.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll mute her.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, Joanne, can you mute?
Uh,
There you go. Thank you. Okay. Okay, so anyway, we're not talking about doing improvisation. Because sometimes in workshops, when I mention the word improvisation and I ask people, did anybody want to run from the room when I mentioned that word? It's like 90% of the hands go up. But don't worry, we're not doing that. There are some important aspects of the craft of improvisation that are really relevant to Alzheimer's caregiving. And so I want to share some of those relevant points for you. So the first rule of improvisation is to make your scene partner look good. So that would go back to the validating and the affirming. The second rule of improvisation is to play the role that you've been cast into. So, like my mom, she thought I was her cousin. I was going to be her cousin. And the third rule is to say yes and. So, what that means is that you meet the person in their moment, in their reality, you accept as valid what they have said, and then you say or do the next logical thing, just like you would with anyone else you were interacting with. So, the don't is don't correct them. In the improv world, correcting someone is called blocking the offer. Blocking the offer. What we want you to do is validate, and that's called accepting the offer. Accepting the offer. So I want to do a little exercise with you. And I'm volunteering Jerry for this exercise. And I'd like to get 3 more people to volunteer. But before we get our volunteers, what I'd like you all to do is pause for a minute and think about something you would like to share with me about yourself. Something that's kind of important, kind of special. You can write it down if you want to. You don't have to, but it's just one sentence. And so if I were going to do this, I would share with you, I wrote a book about Alzheimer's caregiving. That would be what I would share, something that's kind of important to me. I would want you to know about me. So let's just take a minute and think about your one sentence. Okay, so we're going to have Jerry be a volunteer. And if can we get 3 more people to volunteer? And what I'd like you to do is all stand up and come on into the front of the room. And I'm going to close my eyes and count to 10. And by the time I get to 10, there'll be 3 people standing in line behind Jerry. Okay? Everybody ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Do we have our volunteers?
We're all behind you.
No, we're behind you.
No.
Jerry, I'll stay on.
Oh, no, mine doesn't even be neat.
Yeah.
Come on.
Oh, and Mom, Betsy, are you coming? All right, good.
Okay, perfect.
I don't have to do it now because we got 4.
Freeze up just at this moment.
No, we're blocking.
Yeah, Jerry's going to be the lead one, so everybody get in line behind Jerry.
Oh,
Everybody get in line behind Jerry.
There you go.
all right.
There you go.
Lord, send me.
Okay, so what I'd like you to do is one by one is just, tell me your name and then share your sentence with me. And I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to block that. I'm going to block your offer. And I just want you to notice how you feel when I do that. And I'd like all of you who are watching to notice how you feel when you witness that. Okay? So I don't want to tell you anymore. We'll just see how that goes. Okay? So Jerry, you go first.
Okay, so my name is Jerry and I live in the borderlands and I love the borderlands. I love all of the issues and the challenges, immigration and trade and all the rest about this area. I love this area.
Oh, you know what, Jerry? You used to live in the borderlands, but you don't live there anymore. Your daughter moved you back up to Michigan and you live there now. You don't have anything to do with the borderlands. Okay, thank you. And then, eh, okay, so next,
Jerry.
My name is Betsy and
hi, Betsy.
I love to cook and I make excellent chili.
Oh, Betsy, the last time they had that chili cook-off, your chili came in like very, very the last one. It was not good at all.
I'm so sad.
Okay, thank you. Next, can you move up a little bit so I can see you?
I can't stop laughing. I'm Jan and I used to teach CPR to
Oh,
people that felt they had relatives that they might have to help.
yeah, you know what?
Just so you know.
You stumped her, you stumped her.
She doesn't have an answer for it.
You wanted to be a CPR teacher, but you actually flunked the class.
Oh.
Well, I didn't.
Yes, you
No,
did.
I didn't.
Yes, you did.
Next one. No, I didn't. Yeah, there you go.
Bob's next.
She got it. Yeah.
You can talk to the camera.
Oh, in
Hi there.
there.
Yeah, talk to the camera. That's great.
Talk to the camera right here.
But I don't know whether this is pertains to what you're asking of me. But when you were talking about this, what we were doing, it came across to me like you were lying to that person who has the dementia. And it was because you were changing on me.
Yeah. So can we have the volunteers come back? We're not finished yet.
They went home.
Oh, she froze.
This was just part one.
I think she wants.
She's free.
That's good. Thanks, Bob.
Okay.
I think you're done. And so why don't you come back, Bob?
Didn't go home. Come on back.
Okay. Okay, so we're ready for round two.
But she's frozen, so I don't know what's new. Sure how to get her back. Let's see.
That's that Iowa winter.
Hi there. Are you back?
You're back for now.
Okay, Jerry, can we get all the volunteers back? Because I need to ask them questions.
They're all right behind me.
Okay, great.
You want to
So-
see them all?
A long way.
Come on over.
behind.
Yeah.
Come on up.
I can't zoom out.
Yeah, come on. Because what I want to do is I want to ask you what that was like for you when I said no to you, when I said what you said wasn't true.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I didn't like the feeling.
I definitely didn't like the feeling because I know my chili's good.
Right here.
Right in there.
So
Talk to the camera.
Yeah, but she's gone again.
No, I know, but.
Go ahead and talk to her anyway.
I didn't like your answer about the CPR because you don't know me and you don't know how many people I taught.
I'm sorry.
Wi-Fi. But it's.
Okay, so yes, and this is what I want to say. This is a very irritating thing to do. And you knew that this was like a game. It was a false setting, and still it was upsetting to you. We do this all the time to people with dementia. People in care centers do this all the time to people with dementia, and they think they're doing a good thing. They think it's really helpful. And so somebody said they felt sad. you know, you're angry. Who are you? You don't know me. You don't know what I can do. Um, and the thing is this is what we're trying to learn to not do. We're trying to learn to not do this. And I asked the people in the audience to notice how they were feeling because in care centers, especially, people with dementia witness this kind of negation all the time. They witness people in care centers saying no to people with dementia, correcting them all the time. And it's demeaning, it's scary. Some people will react and they'll be very angry. Some people will be very sad, they'll be depressed, they'll go into their room and not come out for the rest of the day. So we're going to do this again. And this time I'm going to validate and I'm going to accept your offer as if it was, you know, was true. And let's see how you feel then. Okay, Jerry, so you can start. Say the same thing.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I love the borderlands. I love living here. I love all the diversity. I love the culture. I love the people. I love the immigration struggles, all the rest. That's me.
Yeah, it's wonderful that you actually landed in that place in geography, Jerry, because there's just so much there that interests you, and you have found your place in the world. You're very lucky.
I have no interest in ever moving to Michigan.
Okay, same sentence, same sentence.
This is Betsy again, and I really like to make chili. It's one of my better foods that I make.
Well, and you know, I can understand why, because at the last, you know, chili cook-off competition, you won first place, and it was really delicious. Everybody thought so.
Thank you. I have taught a lot of people CPR.
You know, I know you have, and you're such a good teacher. You must feel so proud because, you know, you've helped people save lives.
I don't know if any of them ever saved lives, but I felt I was doing them a service.
Yes, you were, for sure. Okay, so I don't know that we got to do yours.
I don't think we did because I misread what I was supposed to do. I'm supposed to propose a dilemma and that you are going to answer to that. The one thing that I have with Hazel, my wife, is
Uh-huh.
when I go to see her, we have a problem communicating because I feel as
Okay.
though I have to not tell her the actual what is going on. And it bothers me that I can't come right out and say, Hazel, no, you're wrong. You
No.
did know that person a long time ago. And that's what
Yeah, so this, yeah, I get it. You're actually having the dilemma because um you want to tell her what's your truth. Yeah.
that's right.
And
That's right.
and why do you feel like you can't tell her? Because you'd have to correct her.
Uh, if I say something that is not absolutely true, I feel that I have done her a misdeed of some sort.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
I want to have everything up front, but I also know that you don't do that with Alzheimer's people.
That's right.
You have to play a game with them.
That's right. You're absolutely
And you
right.
have to do the things that aren't copacetic as far as my relationship has been with her.
Mhm.
Because I mentioned people to her, and she said I never met them in my life. And I walk in the room, and I am a trigger,
Mhm.
and so I have to lie to her all the time that I'm there.
Mhm.
So-called lie, but it isn't lying. It's just trying to make a conversation and make it work for me. And,
That's right.
and I have been told that I would do them a favor if I didn't come into the place to see her, because I am that trigger that sets off a whatever she's into today. She's a very vocal person. Well, Betsy knows that better than I do.
Does she not recognize you?
Sometimes. I haven't seen her in 2 months because
Oh.
they asked me not to come in because I'm a trigger.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like that. I want to see my wife.
Of course you do. Yeah.
And that's my dilemma. I mean, I'm not playing the game that you're on right now.
No, you're
But,
not.
well,
That's okay.
no, but it's interesting. It's interesting because I'm sorry that I call it a game, but that's basically what it is to me. That I have to be a different person in
Yes.
order for me to go in and communicate with her.
You're exactly right. What we were doing right here is a game. And if you want to have a compatible relationship, a joyful, fun relationship with someone who has Alzheimer's, it's the game you have to learn. You have to learn how to play it.
You have to learn that game or just stay away from it. And
You have to.
I've chosen the latter. I haven't seen her in 2 months.
Mhm.
I can't go there
Mhm.
because I know that 2 minutes after I get there and she recognizes me. In particular, I can go there with the dog. And when I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'm gonna just interrupt you. We've got somebody that also wants to say
Okay,
something.
yeah,
Hang on just a minute.
No.
Jade, anything else you'd like to say to Bob at this point?
I don't know. I don't know the situation well enough to like really offer advice. Sorry.
I think, Bob, you do understand the concept.
Oh,
It's
I
hard to
understand the
get,
concept.
it's hard to get into it. And I think of it not as a game so much as a language. The language you need to learn is her language,
Right.
which is a different language. It's a different way of seeing reality. And so that's hard. It's really hard to do that. And you're a solid nuts and bolts kind of guy. And you're used to telling things the way you see, and that's hard. It's hard to step out of that into this other world.
It's very tough.
Yeah. So let's hear, we've got somebody else.
It's very hard.
Yeah, good for you, Bob.
Thank you.
Hang in there. Would you like to say something? Yeah.
What I do with my husband when he doesn't remember something, he's still very functional, or someone. I'll just bring up something that I know about that person that I know he would also be interested in. And kind of like introducing that person. I don't say you've met him before, I don't say anything like that. I said, well, you know what, she likes to play cribbage too, just like you do or something. And start filling in the blanks that way. Maybe it triggers a memory, maybe it doesn't. Doesn't matter.
That's a perfect intervention.
So.
Jade,
Good.
this is Kathy, calling in. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Kathy. Yeah.
I can't figure out where to raise my hand, so sorry if I interrupted anybody, but I thoroughly enjoyed your presentation and the examples you gave. I think we can all really relate to in one way or the other. I wanted to ask you how you would respond to I don't think we ever heard what you would say to someone that says, they really want to see a loved one that has passed. You mentioned that earlier in the presentation, and I really struggled myself to come up with how you would do it rather than just saying no. Aunt Shirley passed away 3 years ago. Don't you remember? Because that is something we've seen with my mother-in-law. We correct her sometimes, and that's why this has been so enlightening. So the only thing I could come up with, and you tell me how it could be better, but I said when a loved one tells you that they want to see a past loved one that is already passed, I'd say yes, it would be nice to go visit Aunt Shirley, but we can't today. How about if we look at some pictures of Aunt Shirley? I couldn't think of any other way to put it. I'm not sure that's great. What would you do?
Did that work?
No, I would,
Oh,
we didn't do it. We said, no, this person passed
Oh.
away. Yeah.
oh, okay. Okay, so she wants to go see her sister.
And thinks that she's still alive.
Okay, she wants to go see her sister. And so the first thing that we want to do is affirm that. Oh, yeah, you and Shirley always get along so well. I'm sure you'd like to see her. So that's the first thing that you're going to do.
Excellent.
You're going to say, you're going to affirm that, and then you're going to say, and um, she is visiting so and so in another town right now, but we can make plans to see her when she gets back.
That's the part that I think is a struggle for all of us because you're really making up a story.
You're making up something. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's one of the things that when I lead workshops, people realize that they need to be, they need to make something up. So you need to be a little bit creative, or you need to be a little bit imaginative. And
Yeah.
I do, like, my longer workshops, we do some imagination exercises. So, I mean, taking care of a dementia patient, a person with dementia, it really requires creativity. And I think it's a really good thing for us to be exercising our creativity.
It's just counterintuitive when we are trying to be truthful, and that's not in our character to do that, but I totally get it. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for the
Dave, we
question.
got a couple more people that are kind of interacting. Can I try to give them a chance to talk to you?
Sure.
Yeah, okay.
I've been trying to figure out a way to not directly lie, because I'm worried that the lie will come back to haunt me. If I lie to him once, is he gonna remember that I lied to him once? So
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out a different way to get around that.
Sure. The problem is he's probably not going to remember that you lied to him. But in fact, what they recommend, I want to go back to Kathy. She said, don't you remember, you're Shirley died. Take "don't you remember" out of your vocabulary.
Absolutely.
Don't you remember out of the vocabulary. Because it's demeaning, of course they don't remember. But anyway, so your question about they're not going to remember the lie. And in fact, if you find a therapeutic fiblet that works, you can use it repeatedly because they're not going to remember that you said that.
Okay.
So do you have a specific situation?
Here's what we did with my grandmother. We would go in and her husband hadn't visited her in forever. She wanted to see him. And so my mom got smart and she says, well, you know how busy he always is. He's probably out on a job. You'll probably see him at dinner, or you may see him at dinner. So it wasn't a direct lie.
Perfect. That's perfect. Right. And
Yeah,
it's interesting because what you're talking about is a little bit more difficult, but it's possible for people who really object to the fiblet. You can figure out ways to be honest like that.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
go.
Thank you.
Like with the example of she wanted to visit her sister, or would love it if her sister came. I would kind of probably run with that a little bit. It'd be nice, yeah, that would be nice to visit her. It'd be nice if you guys could visit, and then start it like what kind of things that might have come up in a conversation if she had really been able to visit, like things they had done, a fun memory, or like what would you, or just even ask her, what do you think you'd like to ask your sister or something? Kind of work it up, kind of spend time in that like it was a visit.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Yeah. And That's a really great thing. In fact, if we use the yes and, when we do the and, we kind of want to add more information, even more so than a question, because sometimes they can't answer questions. But we could say something like, "Oh yeah, I can understand why you'd like to get together with Shirley. You two always love to play cribbage." And that could get her to say something else. Oh yeah, I always beat her because she's not a very good player. Um, but definitely, you want to, try to stay as positive as possible in these conversations. You'd be surprised how interesting they can be.
Are there other comments, questions coming?
Chris has a question here online.
No, I, I just wanted to share. I've had that experience with my wife. She's had dementia for 11 years. I'm a physician. She's a retired nurse. What's helped me with the fibbing or whatever we want to call it is I took an oath to primum non nocere, first do no harm. And I use that all the time. My main objective is to not harm her. And if I can use careful, calm words, normally it's pretty easy because she trusts me. I'll say to her, "Oh, that's a wonderful idea. You want to go see your mother. Why don't we talk about that tomorrow and make some really good plans for it?" And almost always she smiles and says, "Thank you."
That's really lovely, Chris. The do no harm. And if we can keep that in our minds, that the therapeutic fiblets are the path to doing no harm. It's the reality orientation, the correcting, the don't you remember. That's actually doing harm to people with dementia. Thank you so much for adding that.
Hi, my name is Helen.
Hi, Helen.
And my mother's situation, same thing. She was in a nursing home. And a couple of things. There is a time when they're very lucid. She said one thing to me that I'll never forget. She said, "I am courageous when you are here." And I'll never forget that. And then she, of course, would be off. And my feeling, it's not lying. My feeling is you are being medicinally verbal to them and helping them. Because a lot of times she would say to me, "Why do you have to go now? You can stay here and sleep in my room." And I'd say, "No, Mom, I've got the bedroom right around the corner here. So I got to go in my own bed." And then she would be happy with that. So I think people are too getting, maybe I'm immoral and I can lie, but I feel that you're not lying. You are meeting them because cognitively, you're pushing your cognitive on a person that doesn't have the cognitive ability. And to me, I call it disrespectful.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct about that.
Good.
Yeah. I liked
Other
what you
comments?
said,
Yeah.
medicinal statements there.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a form of medicine, therapy.
Mhm. Mhm. Anybody else before I zoom off?
Well, you've left us with a lot, Jade. We've got the handouts and
Yes.
we've been handing those out to people and just continuing to sort this through. This is, I think, a really key concept.
Yes.
And it's been so helpful for me to think in relationship to improv as being kind of a model and a way of entering into this. Because really, this is affirming their world. What you're doing in improv, you're entering their world, you're affirming where they are and what their experiences are. So, should we all give it up for Jade?
Thank you all so much for having me. It's always such a pleasure to be with you.